A very good afternoon to everyone. Today we are going to discuss about antiseptics and disinfectants. Now, this is the outline of the current lecture. First, we'll understand what is the difference between the terms disinfection and sterilization. What is the definition of antiseptics and disinfectants, and what is the difference between these two terms? Which are the desired properties and which are the mechanism of action of antiseptics and disinfectants? We'll have a look at the classification of this group of drugs, and finally we'll discuss the individual agents which are available for antiseptic and disinfectant use. So let us start by understanding the difference between the terms disinfection and sterilization. If you look at the definition, disinfection basically means a reduction in the number of viable pathogenic organisms to a level that they don't pose a risk to an individual with normal host defense. So here we are trying to reduce the number of pathogenic organisms by applying some agents. And these agents can have either an inhibitory effect on the growth of the microorganism, or they can have a sedal effect on the microbes. So disinfectant could be static or sedal in nature. If you look at the definition of sterilization, sterilization means a complete killing of all the forms of microorganisms, including bacterial spores. Now this is the major difference between the terms disinfection and sterilization. A disinfecting agent might be active against all forms of microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, viruses and protozoa, but usually these agents are not active against bacterial spores. If a disinfectant is active against all the forms of microorganisms, it is able to kill them, and it also kills the bacterial spores. It becomes a sterilizing agent. Now, sterilization is a very important concept in microbiology, and this is commonly achieved by using different methods such as dry heat or moist heat, chemical methods or radiation. Now let's have a look at the definition of the terms antiseptic and disinfectant. So according to the World Health Organization, an antiseptic is a type of disinfectant which inhibits the growth or it destroys the microorganisms on living tissues without causing injurious effects when these are applied to the surfaces of the body or to the exposed tissues. Whereas a disinfectant is a chemical agent which destroys or inhibits the growth of microorganisms in the non-sporing or vegetative state without corroding or rusting the instruments or perishable goods. So the major difference between the two terms antiseptic and disinfectant is that antiseptics are meant for application on the living tissues, whereas disinfectants are meant for application on inanimate objects or surfaces. So both antiseptics and disinfectants will inhibit or kill the microorganisms after coming in contact with them. Conventionally, the agents which are used on living surfaces such as skin or mucous membrane, these are known as antiseptics, and the agents which are used on inanimate objects such as instruments, these are known as disinfectants. The term germicide covers both antiseptics as well as disinfectants. So now let's have a look at the different sites of application of these agents. Antiseptic agents can be applied on unbroken skin, mucous membranes. These are extensively used in patients of burns and in patients who are having open wounds. Whereas disinfectants are primarily applied on inanimate objects and surfaces such as instruments, hospital floors, beds. So in case of antiseptics, these agents basically prevent sepsis by removing or excluding the microbes from the site of application, and hence these are called as antiseptics. Whereas sepsis is out of question if you are applying an agent on inanimate objects and surfaces. So these agents are known as disinfectants. and these agents are extremely useful to reduce the rate of hospital-acquired infections. Now let's discuss which are the desired properties of an antiseptic or disinfectant. These agents are widely used, so they should be relatively cheap, chemically stable. They should be non-staining when they are applied to the tissues or on any inanimate object or surface. They should have an agreeable color and odor. They should be seedal in nature, and ideally these should be active against all the pathogens including bacteria, fungi, viruses and protozoa. An ideal antiseptic or disinfectant would require only a brief exposure to the site of application, and especially in case of antiseptics, this should be active even in the presence of organic material such as blood, pus, exudate or excreta. This agent should be able to spread through organic films and enter the folds and crevices. A disinfectant should also be easily washable. Now some additional properties are desired in case of antiseptics. These properties include a rapid and sustained action, that is, if you apply an antiseptic agent on any living surface, the antimicrobial activity should manifest within few seconds of application, and this activity should persist for a considerable period. This agent should be non-irritating to the tissues. This is extremely important to ensure that when you apply an antiseptic or agent on any living surface, it does not irritate the tissue and it does not interfere with the healing process. This agent ideally should be non-absorbable from the site of application, and even if they are absorbed, there should be minimum systemic toxicity on absorption. This agent should be non-sensitizing and they should be compatible with soaps and detergents. Now let's have a look at the antimicrobial spectrum of antiseptics and disinfectants. Many agents have a very wide antimicrobial spectrum. They are effective against bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa. There are some agents which have a relatively narrow spectrum of activity. For example, silver nitrate has a very high activity against gonococci. Benzoyl peroxide has excellent activity against Propionibacterium acnes. And there are some other agents which are more active against gram-positive bacteria as compared to the gram-negative bacteria. These agents are chlorhexidine, hexachloroquine, gentian violet, agriflavin, and quaternary ammonium antiseptics, also known as QANs. So, which are the proposed mechanism of action of antiseptics and disinfectants? I've listed down the agents which follow different mechanisms and will not be repeating this when we discuss the individual agent. So, oxidation of bacterial protoplasm, this is seen with potassium permanganate, hydrogen peroxide, and halogens. Denaturation of the bacterial proteins, this is seen with phenols, chlorhexidine, alcohol, and aldehyde. A detergent-like action can be seen with soaps and cetrimide. Now, which factors can influence the antimicrobial activity of germicides? The factors include temperature and pH of the site of application, which can either enhance or decrease the antimicrobial activity. The period of contact with the site of application. In general, the greater the period of contact, the greater the antimicrobial effect. The nature of microbe involved and intrinsic resistance. We'll discuss this when we discuss the antimicrobial spectrum of each agent. The severity of infection and the likelihood of presence of a mixed microbial flora at the site of application. And one very important factor to consider, especially in case of antiseptic, is presence of organic material at the site of application, such as blood, pus, serum, or any other organic material. This organic material actually interferes with the activity of many antiseptic agents and also some of the disinfectants. Now let's have a look at the classification of antiseptics and disinfectants. There is not a clear-cut difference between antiseptics and disinfectants. What you will observe is that many of the agents from the same group will have either an exclusive antiseptic or a disinfectant use. So the classification is broadly chemical in nature. We have phenol derivatives, we have oxidizing agents, halogens, biguanide, quaternary ammonium compounds, soaps, alcohols, aldehydes, acids, metallic salts, dyes, and a nitrofuran derivative, nitrofurazone. So let us start with the most basic antiseptic that we are using in our day-to-day life. Soaps are basically anionic detergents, and these are considered to be weak antiseptics, and they affect primarily the gram-positive bacteria only. Washing with soap and warm water actually helps to remove or to dilute the pathogenic bacteria, and washing hands with soap and water is considered to be one of the most important means of reducing person-to-person transmission by healthcare personnel. So this is an extremely effective means of preventing transmission from one patient to another patient. Normally these soaps are non-medicated, but some medicated soaps are also available which may contain some topical antiseptic agents like topical antifungals, and this will have additional antiseptic properties. The second group, known as phenols and related compounds or phenolics. Now phenol is the standard for comparing the potency of germicidal agents. A phenol coefficient or a Radel-Walker coefficient is used to compare the potency of different germicidal agents. Phenol has bactericidal and fungicidal activity at concentration more than 1%. It is not effective against spores or viruses. Also, its action is interfered by organic matter, soaps, alcohol, glycerin, and alkalis. More importantly, phenol is a protoplasmic poison, so it will injure the microbial cells and the host cells alike. And at high concentration of phenol, skin burns can be observed. Because of these properties, phenol is now seldom used as an antiseptic. However, it is used to disinfect the excreta of the patient, such as urine, feces. It can also be used to disinfect pus and sputum of patients. Phenol can be used for hard surface decontamination in hospitals and laboratories. A 0.5% solution of phenol is shown to have a local anesthetic activity as well, and it can be used in antipruritic preparation. The other phenols which are used as antiseptic or disinfectant include cresol, which is methylphenol. It is more active as compared to phenol, and it is also less damaging to the tissues. So a 2% solution of cresol can be used for disinfection of utensils, excreta, as well as it can be used as a hand wash. We also have a soap-like solution of cresol which is known as Lysol. Lysol is prepared by mixing up cresol with vegetable oil or mixed fatty acid, and it contains almost 50% volume by volume cresol. Lysol is a common disinfectant for hospital and domestic use. Other phenol is hexyl resorcinol. It is non-staining, it is also odorless, and it can be used as a mouthwash, as lozenge, and as an antifungal agent. Now, one of the most commonly used phenol as an antiseptic is chloroxylenol. It is the part of the commercial preparation Dettol which contains 4.8% concentration of chloroxylenol. It is a chlorinated phenol which is effective against gram-positive as well as gram-negative organisms, but usually it is not effective against Pseudomonas and bacterial spores. It is non-corrosive. It is non-irritant to the intact skin, unlike phenol, but its efficacy can be reduced by organic matter. Now, this preparation is extremely commonly used for surgical antisepsis where a 4.8% solution can be used. It is also available in skin cream and soap in a low concentration of 0.8%. An oxidative cream is also available which contains 1.4% of chloroxylenol. A mouthwash of chloroxylenol is also available, and a higher concentration, more than 6%, is used for disinfection of the surgical instrument. Now the last member of this group, hexachlorophene. Again, it's a chlorinated phenol. It is non-irritating and non-staining. And hexachlorophene has a unique feature that it forms a fine film on the skin, which leads to a prolonged antimicrobial effect. But it is relatively narrow spectrum as compared to the other phenols. It affects only the gram-positive bacteria, and like phenol, its activity is reduced by organic matter, but unlike phenol, it is not affected by soaps. So hexachlorophene is commonly incorporated in soap and other cleansing antiseptic for surgical scrub in a 1 to 3% concentration. It can also be used in conditions like carbuncles, impetigo, and seborrheic dermatitis. And hexachlorophene is also a part of deodorant preparation where it will prevent the bacterial decomposition of the organic material. Hexachlorophene can lead to allergic manifestation in the persons who are using it. Also previously it was used as a 3% solution as an infant bathing solution. But this has led to incidence of severe neurotoxicity in the infants, including convulsion. And because of this reason, more than 2% concentration of hexachlorophene preparation have been officially banned. Coming to the next group, oxidizing agents. This include three agents: potassium permanganate, hydrogen peroxide, and benzoyl peroxide. Now, potassium permanganate is available in the form of crystals and concentrated solution, both of which are considered to be caustic. They can damage if they are applied to a surface, and higher concentration of potassium permanganate will lead to burns, blistering. It also promotes the rusting of metals. An ingestion of concentrated solution will lead to severe GI irritation, cardiovascular depression, as well as kidney damage. And also its action is interfered by organic material. So a low concentration solution, 1 gem 4000 to 1 gem 10,000 diluted solution of potassium permanganate can be used for gargling as douches, for irrigation of cavities, urethra and wounds. A 1% solution is used in the treatment of athlete's foot and poison ivy dermatitis, whereas a low concentration solution, 0.02% aqueous solution, is used as a stomach wash in case of alkaloidal poisoning. If you remember general pharmacology, this is an example of chemical antagonism where potassium permanganate will cause oxidation of the ingested alkaloids, and it will prevent the further absorption of these alkaloids from the GI tract. Potassium permanganate is also used for disinfection of the water wells and vegetables and fruits. The second agent, hydrogen peroxide, it shows a weak transient action, but once hydrogen peroxide is applied on a living tissue, it is reduced by the catalysis which is present in the tissue, and that causes effervescence, and it leads to a foaming which helps in removing sleeve and earwax. And that's why hydrogen peroxide solution is used for cleansing wounds and abscesses, for removal of adhering dressing and also for irrigation. It is also part of ear drops and it helps the removal of ear wax. It is also part of deodorant preparations, and sometimes in dentistry hydrogen peroxide solution is used to clean the septic sockets, and also it is used as an antiseptic during root canal treatment. The last agent from this group, benzoyl peroxide, it has high activity against Propionibacterium acnes, and that's why topical preparation of benzoyl peroxide such as gel, cream, wash in a concentration of 2.5 to 10% are used for treatment of acne vulgaris. The next very important group of antiseptic and disinfectant are halogens. This group includes iodine, iodophores, chlorine and chloroform, all of which are extensively used for antiseptic and disinfectant purposes. We'll start with the first agent, iodine. It has a broad spectrum of activity. It is effective against bacteria, fungi, viruses as well as bacterial spores. And a 1 gem 20,000 solution of iodine, it is effective to kill the bacterial spores within a contact period of 15 minutes. Its action is interfered by organic matter and reducing agents, and it is also corrosive in nature. So the problem with iodine is that it can lead to staining of the clothes and dressings. It is also an irritant, so it may delay the healing of the underlying tissue. At high concentration, more than 5%, it will lead to burning and blistering of the skin. And it is also known to sensitize the person, which can lead to rashes or other systemic manifestation. So we have different preparation of iodine available. This includes tincture of iodine, which contains 2% iodine and a 2.4% of sodium iodide in alcohol, which is used on cuts, also for pre-surgical preparation of the skin, and also as a topical treatment of ringworm. Mendel's paint contains 1.25% of iodine dissolved in potassium iodide, which is used in patients of sore throat, and a non-staining iodine ointment, which is available as Iodex commercially. It is shown to have counter-irritant property, and it is also having some antifungal property, so it can be used as an antiseptic agent as well. The second preparation of iodine, which combines iodine with surface active agents such as polyvinyl pyrrolidone. These preparations are known as iodophores, which will basically release iodine very slowly. One of the most favorite popular preparation One of the most popular preparation includes povidone iodine or betadine, which has excellent bactericidal, fungicidal, viricidal, mycobactericidal activity as well as sporicidal activity on prolonged exposure. Unlike iodine, this is non-irritant, non-toxic, non-staining, but because of the slow release of the iodine, it requires a drying out time on the skin before it demonstrates the antimicrobial activity. So this iodophores, particularly povidone iodine, is used in the treatment of boils, burns, otitis externa, ulcer, tinea infection, in treatment of monilial, trichomonal or non-specific vaginitis, as hand wash or surgical scrubbing, as well as for pre-operative skin preparation, and it can also be used for disinfection of endoscopes and instruments, although aldehydes are more preferred for this purpose. In case of iodine preparations or iodophores, it is advised that regular or prolonged use should be avoided in patients with thyroid disorders, in neonates or low birth weight infants, and in patients who are taking lithium. Coming to the next agent, chlorine. It is an extremely commonly used disinfectant. It has cidal activity against many gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, protozoa as well as viruses. It also has some activity against acid-fast organisms, and it shows a relatively rapid onset of action within 30 seconds, but the activity is not sustained. The chlorine tablets are extremely commonly used for disinfection of the water supplies, but this agent is known to bind with the organic matter, and if the water supplies are contaminated with such material, a higher number of chlorine tablets will be required for the disinfection purpose. The free chlorine concentration of water supplies which is required for disinfection is 0.2 to 0.4 ppm, which is known as the chlorine demand of the water. The other preparation is chloramine, which releases chlorine slowly, and it is used for antiseptic purpose. 2% solution is used for irrigation of wounds, whereas a 0.2 to 0.5% solution is used as mouthwash and for irrigation of bladder and urethra. The other preparations which slowly release hypochlorous acid, which is responsible for the antimicrobial effect, these preparations are known as chlorophores. Two compounds are available: chlorinated lime or bleaching powder and sodium hypochlorite solution. Its compounds are too irritant to be used as antiseptics. So chlorinated lime is used for disinfection of the drinking water, swimming pools, and as a sanitizer for privates, whereas sodium hypochlorite solution is used as a disinfectant in dairies for disinfecting the milk cans and other equipments, as well as the infant feeding bottles. Also, it can be used as an antiseptic agent in root canal treatment. The next group is biguanide. Only one agent is available, however it is extremely frequently used. The agent is chlorhexidine, which is a cationic biguanide. It is more active against gram-positive bacteria than against gram-negative bacteria, and it is less effective against Pseudomonas and Proteus, and it is inactive against mycobacteria. Chlorhexidine, like hexachlorophene, shows a sustained action on the skin by forming a fine film on the skin, and it is resistant to inhibition by organic materials. The problem with chlorhexidine is that because it is cationic in nature, it is incompatible with soap or any other anionic materials. And when chlorhexidine combines with such material, this will form salts of low solubility, and this will precipitate out of solution. Also, it is considered to be an irritant, so it is advised that chlorhexidine solution should not be used as an antiseptic when you are applying this, when you are operating on middle ear, eyes, brain or meninges, and it is not for use in body cavities. When chlorhexidine solution has been used in surgeries on middle ear or surgeries on brain, there have been incidents of sensory neural deafness and neurotoxicity, so it is not to be used in these sites. So what are the uses of chlorhexidine? It is a popular surgical scrub when it is used in combination with 70% alcohol. It is also used as a neonatal bath in obstetrics as an antiseptic solution. For general skin antiseptic purpose, a 0.05% aqueous solution is available, which can be used for treatment of wounds, burns or other form of skin damage. In dentistry, an oral rinse of chlorhexidine and toothpaste of chlorhexidine is also available. When these are used in dentistry as an oral rinse or as a toothpaste, this can lead to aftertaste or brownish discoloration of the teeth on prolonged use. And when it is used for antiseptic purpose on the skin, it can occasionally lead to skin sensitivity and irritation. Now there are some important things to understand about chlorhexidine. Is that the aqueous solution of chlorhexidine is susceptible to bacterial contamination. So it is important that a sterilized or freshly prepared solution of chlorhexidine is used for the antiseptic purpose. If it needs to be stored, precautions have to be taken to avoid the contamination during storage. Otherwise, this aqueous solution can become contaminated by resistant organisms such as Pseudomonas or Proteus, and this will actually cause infection in the patients which use these antiseptic solutions. Also, the alcohol-based solutions are flammable, so this need to be stored in a cool, well-ventilated environment. Now, chlorhexidine can also be used as a disinfectant. For disinfection of clean instrument, a 0.05% solution of chlorhexidine which contains 0.1% of sodium nitrite to avoid the metal corrosion is used. The clean instruments need to be immersed in this solution for at least 30 minutes. If an emergency disinfection of clean instrument is required, a 0.5% solution of chlorhexidine in alcohol 70% concentration is used, and these clean instruments need to be immersed for at least 2 minutes in this solution. The next group is quaternary ammonium compounds, popularly known as quarts. These are cationic surface active detergents. Three agents are available in this group, which include cetrimide, benzalkonium chloride, and dequalinium chloride. And these have cidal activity against gram-positive bacteria, and they also inactivate lipophilic viruses, but gram-negative bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and bacterial spores are resistant. Because these are cationic in nature, anionic materials such as soap will neutralize the action. Alcohol is known to potentiate the action of quarts. Also, these quarts are inhibited by the presence of organic material. Also, their activity can be inhibited by fiber or other porous material when they are used for disinfectant purposes. These are non-irritating. They can form a film on the skin, but the resistant organisms can actually survive under this film, and they can proliferate and they can worsen the infection. These have a slow action, and quarts can be used for sanitation of non-critical surfaces such as floor or bench tops, and because of their good safety profile, they are also used as sanitizer in the food production facilities. Now, cetrimide, a 1 to 3% solution which is known to have a cleansing action if it is used to clean up the wounds in road traffic accidents. A combination of cetrimide and chlorhexidine is used as an hospital antiseptic and as a disinfectant for instruments, utensils, and bags. Benzalkonium chloride is used for sterile storage of instruments and for irrigation and as a douche, whereas dequalinium chloride is used as a gum paint and lozenge. However, there is a recommendation by the CDC that the quarts should not be used for antiseptic purposes because their solutions can get contaminated by resistant organisms like Pseudomonas. And when these solutions have been used for antiseptic purposes, this has actually led to outbreak of infection by these resistant organisms such as Pseudomonas or other gram-negative bacteria. So the CDC recommends that quarts should not be used for antiseptic purposes. Now, one of the most commonly used antiseptic is alcohol. Two alcohols are available for antiseptic use, ethanol and isopropanol. These have effective antiseptic activity at 40 to 90% concentration. The optimum concentration for cutaneous antisepsis is considered to be 70% of ethanol or isopropanol. These alcohols have bactericidal, fungicidal, tuberculocidal, and virucidal activity. Ethanol is effective against both lipophilic as well as hydrophilic viruses, whereas isopropanol is more active against lipophilic viruses only. But alcohols are not effective against bacterial spores. Alcohols are irritant, so they should not be applied on mucous membrane or delicate skin or on broken skins, ulcers. These are flammable and they also promote the rusting, so their use has declined as disinfectant. So what is the use of alcohol? These are commonly used as antiseptic for preparation of the skin before injection, before venipuncture or surgical procedure. They can be applied on minor cut but not on major skin breach. The adverse drug reaction would be irritation of the skin, burning sensation is common, and with frequent application, skin dryness is also observed. This can be reduced by adding an emollient to the alcohol formulation. Now, some important points to remember about alcohol. Alcohols are not effective against spores, including those of Clostridium difficile. So, if you are attending a patient of Clostridium difficile infection for disinfecting your skin, alcohol will not be a suitable antiseptic. And in this case, when you are caring for such patients who might have contamination with the bacterial spores, to prevent the person-to-person transmission of infection, alcohol is not a suitable alternative and you have to switch over to hand washing with soap and water. These solutions are flammable, so they have to be stored in a cool, well-ventilated environment. And because of this flammable property, if it is used for pre-operative preparation of the skin, it is important that enough time is allowed to evaporate the alcohol solution from the skin before application of cautery, electrosurgery or diathermy. Otherwise, it may lead to burn-like injury in the patients. The next very important group is aldehydes. Aldehydes are frequently used as disinfectants. Two agents are available, formaldehyde and glutaraldehyde. Formaldehyde is normally a gas at room temperature, and this gaseous formaldehyde is used for sterilization of operation theaters. Formaldehyde solution is irritant in nature and it has a relatively slow onset of action, so it is rarely used as an antiseptic. However, a 10% solution can be used for disinfection of instruments and excreta, and a 3% solution is used for removal of moths. Now, formaldehyde is also available as an aqueous solution containing 38 to 40% of formaldehyde with methanol. The solution is known as formalin, and formalin is used for preservation of dead tissues, and it can also be used for precipitation of toxoids. Now, the persons who are handling formalin are prone to development of enzymatoid reactions. The next important disinfecting agent is glutaraldehyde. As compared to formaldehyde, it is less irritating, it is less pungent, less volatile. It also has a broad spectrum activity. It is active against bacteria, viruses, fungi, as well as bacterial spores. And organic matter does not interfere with the antimicrobial activity of glutaraldehyde. It is also not found to damage the lenses and the cementing material of endoscopes. And because of this reason, glutaraldehyde has now become the favorable agent for disinfection of surgical instruments and endoscopes. A 2% solution is used, which is buffered with sodium bicarbonate to maintain a pH less than 8. Because at pH more than 8.5, glutaraldehyde is found to polymerize, and that will lead to a loss of antimicrobial activity of glutaraldehyde. 2% solution is also used for hyperhidrosis of palms and soles. The adverse drug reaction of glutaraldehyde is skin sensitization. The next group is acids. Boric acid, we all know from the dusting powder, which is used for pest control, but it is also a weak antiseptic. It has bacteriostatic and fungistatic property, and it is non-irritating. So a 4% solution of boric acid can be used for irrigation of eyes, mouthwash, as well as vaginal douche. A 10% ointment can be applied on cuts and abrasions. It is also a part of prickly heat powders and ear drops. A boroglycerin paint containing 30% of boric acid is used for treatment of stomatitis and glossitis, and boric acid dusting powder is frequently used for pest control. The other acids include benzoic acid. It has antibacterial and antifungal property, and 0.1% solution is used as a preservative. The next agent is salicylic acid, which has bacteriostatic, fungicidal and keratolytic property. And salicylic acid is used either as an ointment or as a part of Pitfill's ointment for treatment of seborrheic dermatitis, acne or other fungal skin lesions, and for removal of warts and corns. Acetic acid is a weak antiseptic. It has a bactericidal effect at more than 5% concentration, but the solution is sometimes used for dressing the burns lesion and as douche. The next group is metallic salts, which have astringent action. They will precipitate the bacterial proteins as well as the enzyme. Two types of salts are used for antiseptic purposes: silver nitrate, silver salts and zinc salts. Among the silver salts, silver nitrate is available in crystalline form, which has antiseptic and astringent properties, but it is also caustic. The silver nitrate forms silver proteinate by interaction with the tissue proteins, which leads to a slow release of the silver ions. But the problem with this salt is that it will lead to a black staining of the tissues. So it is not very preferred as an antiseptic agent, but it can be used in hypertrophic tonsillitis or Aspergillus ulcers. And a 1% solution is frequently used for treatment of ophthalmia neonatorum because silver nitrate has excellent activity against gonococci. Silver nitrate can also be used for removal of warts and skin growth. The other silver salt which is used for antiseptic purpose is silver sulfadiazine, which has high activity against Pseudomonas, and it is one of the most frequently used agent for patients of burns. Coming to the next salt, zinc salts are used. Zinc sulfate is available in a crystal form or as a crystalline powder. These are highly water soluble. So 0.1 to 1% solution can be used as eye wash or eye and ear drop. More commonly you will find zinc sulfate in combination with other topical preparations. So zinc sulfate and sulfurated potash are combined to create acne and impetigo, and it is also a part of deodorant preparations. The other zinc salt which is used includes calamine, which contains 98% of zinc carbonate, and it has mild antiseptic and astringent action, but it also has soothing property. So calamine lotion is frequently used in skin conditions such as sunburns, eczema and urticaria. Coming to the next group, dyes. Dyes are not frequently used for antiseptic purposes because of their staining property. The current indication for use of dyes as an antiseptic is in treatment of chronic skin conditions which are not responding to other topical antiseptic agents. So we have 3 to 4 agents available in this group. Gentian violet is active against Staphylococci and other gram-positive bacteria and fungi. It is not active against gram-negative organisms or mycobacteria. 0.5 to 1% solution can be used for treatment of furunculosis, bad sore, chronic ulcers, eczema, thrush, Vincent's angina, and ringworm. The drawback is deep staining of the tissues, because of which these dyes are not preferred as antiseptic agents. A triple dye is also available which contains gentian violet, brilliant cream, and acrylamide, which can be used for treatment of burns and for dressing the umbilical stumps. The next in this group are acridine dyes, which include acrylamine and proflavin. They have a slightly different mechanism of action. These acridines intercalate in the DNA and they increase the distance between the adjacent base pairs. So they will lead to a frame shift mutation in the microorganism. These acridine dyes are more active against gram-positive bacteria and Conocopad, and their activity is not reduced by the presence of organic matter. But upon exposure to light, there is a loss of efficacy, and these acridine dyes are stored in amber-colored bottles. So the primary use of acridine dyes will again be treatment of chronic ulcers and wounds which are not responding to other topical antiseptic agents. Acridine dyes in combination with Vaseline can be used for dressing the burns lesion. The last among the antiseptic and disinfectant group is furan derivatives. Nitrofurazone, it also has a different mechanism of action. It inhibits the enzymes which are necessary for carbohydrate metabolism, and it interferes with the carbohydrate metabolism at multiple steps. Nitrofurazone has serial activity against gram-positive, gram-negative as well as aerobic and anaerobic bacteria, and its activity is reduced in the presence of serum. Nitrofurazone can be used to prevent infection in patients of burns and patients who have received a skin graft, and it is used in the form of ointment, creams as well as a topical solution. This nitrofurazone can lead to sensitization of the skin. One more adverse drug reaction which is characteristic of the topical solution of nitrofurazone is that it contains polyethylene glycol, and in patients who are suffering from renal impairment, this topical solution can get absorbed into the systemic circulation, and this polyethylene glycol will accumulate in the systemic circulation, and that might lead to toxicity in patients with renal impairment. Also, this nitrofurazone is found to be mutagenic and carcinogenic in some animal studies. So, prolonged use of nitrofurazone should be avoided in humans. Now, just to conclude, this table shows the antimicrobial activity of commonly used antiseptics and disinfectants. As you can see, there are very few agents which are available against all the forms of microorganisms, whether it is bacteria, viruses, fungi, or protozoa. Also, none of the agents are effective against prions except for the chlorine solutions. So, this table is from Basic and Clinical Pharmacology by Katzner, 14th edition, and you can have a look at this table to understand why certain antiseptics or disinfectants should be preferred at different sites of application. So to conclude, the take-home message from today's lecture is that antiseptics are used on living surfaces, whereas disinfectants are used on inanimate objects and surfaces. Choice of an antiseptic or disinfectant depends upon the antimicrobial spectrum of the agent, the desired site of application and the likely microorganism which is involved, irritant or corrosive nature of the agent, compatibility with soaps and detergent, activity in presence of organic materials, especially in case of antiseptics, and cost and chemical stability. So I hope this lecture has been useful for the students. If there are any doubts, you can contact me. Thank you.